Welcome to Snooze with Sam. To everyone who's supported me this last year, especially my patrons, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Here's something a little special. So as always, lie back, take a deep breath, and Merry Christmas. Twas the night before Christmas, beneath a million stars. A crescent moon shone brightly, as did Jupiter and Mars. The snowflakes fell heavily, vast forests turned to white. These great glens of Scotland were so magical at night. From the cover of shelter you'd ventured this eve, for your log fire is dying, more wood you must retrieve. But under the soft moonlight you were not to know yet a Christmas miracle would arise that you'll never forget. Attempting to keep as much heat in your hands as possible, you huff and puff your warm breath into your gloves, clapping and rubbing them together. It feels like a losing battle, but a battle you're willing to partake in regardless. It's a bitter Christmas Eve in the glens, well below zero. The icy night air freezes your nose and airways with every breath. But in a funny way, you quite like the feeling. There are many things which make you feel Christmassy. The smell of mixed spices, cinnamon and warm baking apples. Seeing the bright red holly berries sparkle between the glossy and prickly leaves. Eating your very first mince pie of the season, which, by the way, cannot be consumed before December. That's the law. And of course, the steamy and fragrant process of mulling your own wine with oranges, cloves, and cinnamon sticks. They are all a true feast for your Christmas spirit. But among them, that sensation of the dry, freezing cold coursing through your nose and lungs tells you that it couldn't possibly be any other time of year but Christmas. Having taken a short walk from your warm bothy in search of more firewood, you eventually come across the small pile which you'd previously stacked but a few days before. Even beneath a few inches of fresh, powdery snow, the pile is fairly visible at the edge of the woods. Clasping as many pieces of dead wood as you can, notwithstanding all of your thick, toasty clothes getting in your road, you manage to hoist a decent batch. Enough to see you through the night, that's for sure. Traipsing through the ankle-deep snow, you make your way back towards shelter. Your wee bothy, glowing toastily in the middle distance. Every muffled footstep is still the loudest thing in the glens, bar the hooting owls, of course. But it's only because of the perfectly idyllic rural setting in which nothing exists apart from you and nature. This is your happy place. And what a wonderful place to spend your Christmas Eve. Aside from your wee radiant cabin, glowing a soft orange from the fire inside, the entire surrounding landscape is a vast panorama of blues. The mountains either side of the glen are the darkest of the lot. A deep marine hue, like shadows against the night sky, which itself is a shade or two paler. Against the sky, a million stars twinkle and shine from horizon to horizon. Admiring a few constellations you can identify, a slim crescent moon adds further beauty to the solar, stratospheric painting above. Although slim, the moon still shines brightly and makes the snow on the ground sparkle and glow like celestial neon. It all looks very cold indeed. And that's because it is. Good job then, that you are nearly back towards the heat of the Bothy. The wee chimney is still letting out faint wisps of smoke. A good sign. On approach to the sloping, snow-covered shape of your home, you cannot help but pause to admire your Christmas tree. Positioned not too far from the front of your bothy, in a patch of open ground, was your wonderfully bejewelled Nordman fir tree, still alive and well and growing where it stands. Every year, around the same time, you decorate it in all manner of lovely things. red and golden baubles, little fairy lanterns, each with their own crackling tea lights shining brightly in the night. Fresh pine cone that you'd tied small bits of string around. They really do glisten on these cold nights when they catch the frost. And, of course, on top, a real shining star. Years back, you'd carved the star from solid wood, but, much to your joyful surprise, once it had weathered a snow blizzard or bared a harsh frost, the star seemed to reflect every tiny bit of light which hit it, just like a perfectly cut diamond would glisten and glitter. It was truly magical, and something you'd never been able to truly explain, for it seemed unreal. But tonight, beneath the moonlight, it shines as brightly as it ever has. The whole Christmas tree gives you that wonderful, warm feeling inside. The generous splash of colour it wears on its sleeve, stark against the bleak winter wonderland. With just a little more passing admiration and pride, you make for the front door of your pinewood bothy. Nearing the door, you note the icicles drooping from the gable ends, and the wreath you'd made from holly, ivy, and pine cones. Carefully balancing your collected fuel and cautiously kicking the snow from your boots, you reach for the doorknob, ready for a swift exchange from outside to in. So as not to lose too much heat from inside. You want to move quickly. So with a quick twist and sidestep, the door whooshed open on its hinges, and you are in. With an enormous shudder, the last of the cold air clinging to you against the relentless warmth dissipates. That's much, much better. A little scan of the basic room fills you with a sense of safety, security, and calm, like nothing else can. Besides the light from the fireplace, to your left, on the frontal wall, and the wonderfully mellow glimmer and gleam from your other wee Christmas tree, all is dark. Obviously, you have one tree for outside and one for in, don't you? Of course you do. The details in the pine cross-sections used to panel the walls still stand out like works of art in their own right. Busy shadows flicker on the wall, finding edges, nooks, and crannies in which to linger peacefully. It's a small room, but more than functional. A large fold-out bed doubles as a sofa, which sits obediently parallel to the master of the room. An impractically imposing and dense coffee table, which is hewn from the richest woods. In the simplicity of the rest of the room, it's rather intriguing, if a little obnoxious. Yet somehow it fits the feel. Warm, sturdy, and rugged in an indestructible sense. Lying centerpiece, a bowl of your own Christmas-spiced potpourri, made from oranges, apples, and cloves. This sits accompanied by your precious battery radio, which faintly crackles with some baseless Christmas carols. There are 3 cross-pane windows, 2 on the front of the Bothy, and 1 on the rear wall. All of which are lightly steamy from condensation. A good stoke of the fire should sort that right out in just a wee moment. Taking up position in front of the open pit fireplace, you use your thin pokey stick to shuffle some embers around, stirring up the fiery splints. Once you're happy that a suitable bed is made, a good few of your logs are balanced on top. They take to the flame after a minute or 2, once they'd warmed up themselves. As it's quite dark, you light a few candles. Taking your box of precious matches, you strike one on the sandpaper, enjoying the firework display that is igniting phosphorus. And take the match to 3 different candles in different parts of the room. In merely moments, the whole place feels a lot more comfortable. A lovely, cosy, Christmassy den. Perfect. Right. That's enough chores. It's Christmas Eve, for goodness sake. It's about time you enjoyed yourself a little before winding down for the night. Now, where in Robert the Bruce's kilt is that bottle of sherry? There it is, over on the worktop by the kitchenette. taking a small crystal-cut glass from a nearby shelf, as well as helping yourself to a couple of small mincemeat pies you'd made earlier that day. You settled on the sofa and wrapped a shawl around your legs and feet. Despite your fluffy boots, your toes still needed a little defrosting by the fire. Is there a more delightful combination than sherry and spiced fruit? Tucking into the teeny weeny pies, you couldn't think of one. The spicy, rich, and musky sherry complements the crisp short crust pastry and moist, boozy, luxurious mincemeat so wonderfully well. As the flames of the fire take hold of their formerly frozen fuel, the flames erupt in newfound vigor. Practically shielding your face from the radiating heat. You quickly warm up and actually find yourself abandoning your shawl entirely. As with every fire you make, a moment or two is taken to allow the ferocious yet soothing elegance of the fiery embers to stir your soul a little. Before you even realize, many minutes pass where all you do is gaze right into the heart of it. A wee thought crosses your mind. Before bed, you mustn't forget the most important task of all. Hopping back across to the worktop, you take a small plate and on it place another couple of your mince pies and a handful of carrots. A second glass of sherry is poured, and you place both the plate and the sherry down on the hearth of the fire, ready for Santa Claus and his reindeer. It sounds daft, of course, but it's a tradition you'd done since you were only wee, and your parents involved you with. They'd say, "It's very important to give Santa Claus some energy on his long night of working all around the world. And for the reindeer too. That's why we give them the carrots." Oh, and the sherry? We hear that's what he likes best. Enthralled by the proposition of providing the big man himself with fuel to help his night along, you loved this idea. And so, every morning, when you woke at a time so antisocial, you were often sent back to bed, it never ceased to excite and amaze you when all that remained of the provisions were a few crumbs, the leafy bits of the carrots, and an empty sherry glass. In the years to come, you did get slightly more suspicious of the moans of alleged headaches from your parents. But this wasn't the most amusing and frankly endearing part of your discoveries. What tickled you the most was that someone must have gone at most of a dozen carrots like a wood chipper. And so, content that the big man and all his reindeer's provisions were all in place, even though you knew you'd end up just consuming them yourself tomorrow. You blow out the candles, pull the bed out, and settle yourself beneath the covers. Through sleepy eyes, the twinkling of the baubled tree and the gentle crackling fire were enough to send you to sleep in little more than an instant. Or perhaps it was the sherry. A sound in the night stirs you, or is it two? What is that? A fox? A mouse? Or even a shrew? No, this noise is more than just a squeak. It's a grunt or a bark, not something so weak. Tossing and turning, your eyes still so shut. You begin to wake up when hearing the ruts, the stomping of hooves, the jingle of reins. Sounds not so familiar, yet distinctive all the same. Finally, at last, you wake up and think that it's not just some hooves, but there's a noise by the sink. Slowly and carefully, you turn where you lie, craning and fearful of what you may find. A ghoul, a goblin, or perhaps even an elf. But no. Sipping sherry by the fire is the big man himself. Santa Claus? Is that you? You whisper through the thin night air. With a swift turn away from the fireplace, half-eaten mince pie in hand, the old man cries, "Oh, heavens above! You startled me, my dear." In your semi-conscious state, you still aren't sure if you're dreaming or not. But steadily, and with every passing second, your eyes widen with a mixture of shock, awe, and joy. You can't believe it. Stooped down beside the smouldering embers of the fire, fully clad with fluffy red and white trimmed suit, is Santa Claus. His kind, twinkling eyes glint behind thin-rimmed spectacles, which themselves balance on his rosy red nose. His great white beard drapes to mid-chest level, resting on his rather portly belly. Beneath which a large, thick, black belt buckles snugly. They are doing an adequate job at keeping his big red breeks from falling down past his shiny black boots. You suppose the mince pie might help that cause a little. I didn't mean to wake you up, my dear. I hope I wasn't making too much noise. Speechless and unable to find the words to describe the emotions you were juggling, you simply shake your head from side to side with a wee groggy smile. Affording a glance towards your Christmas tree, you spy a wee gift all wrapped up beneath the branches. You suppose he placed it there before you woke up. These mince pies are simply delightful, I must say, Santa Claus says, with an embarrassed, rosy-cheeked smile, gesturing towards the now empty plate and sherry glass. And is there a more perfect combination than to have them with a little glass of sherry? Naturally, you are inclined to agree. But something else is gone from the plate too. The carrots. You add 2 plus 2 together in your mind, and Santa clocks your thoughts as you stare at the empty vessels. Yes, I've given the reindeer your carrots. They are very grateful, he says with an enormous big smile. Would you like to come outside and meet them? You can hardly believe your ears, or eyes for that matter. None of what you're experiencing feels like it makes any sense. Santa Claus is really here, and he's inviting you outside to meet his reindeer. It's like you're a child again, living your perfect Christmas fairy tale. With a still sleepy but enthusiastic nod, you gratefully agree and hastily slip on your boots over your pyjamas and throw on your biggest, coziest Parker jacket. Santa Claus leads the way. Big hefty boots appearing to stomp across the floorboards. Yet he moves so silently. Years of practice, you suppose. He cracks the front door, and the cold hits you like an anvil. But that's soon forgotten as the fairy tale continues with what you see before your very eyes. Blinking hard, urging yourself to wake up from your dream, if that's what's happening. You squint through bleary, ice-blasted eyes to see 9 beautiful, grey and patchy brown reindeer, all tied together in 2 parallel lines, shackled to Santa Claus's big sleigh. They stand there so patiently and proudly, every single one of them with the most majestic, velvety and soft to the appearance antlers. But of course, at the head of the lines, leading them all, is who you suppose is Rudolph. His faintly glowing red nose hiding nothing at all. It's not a beacon of light, as stories and songs would have you believe. At least not at ground level. Maybe once they're in the air, he just switches it on like a light bulb. Down here, it's got just a wee ruby tinge. Still, you can see where the song was inspired from. As if by instruction, all of them give you a wee nod and a grunt of greeting. Santa nods sideways himself, beckoning you to go and say hello. One by one, you shuffle through the snow, stroking their heads, scratching their ears, and, of course, booping their noses. Rudolph didn't appreciate this so much. You think he's grown a little wearisome of nose-related activities. You guess you understand. Each of them wears a collar, on which their name tags are displayed so clearly. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer and Vixen, Comet, then Cupid, Donner and Blitzen, and, of course, Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. All as handsome and gorgeous as the last. Beneath the stars and the warm lights from the Christmas tree, it was truly a magical sight. Out of the corner of your eye, you notice Santa Claus wiggle a few gloved fingers in the direction of your Christmas tree. Was it just your imagination? Or did your wooden star sitting on the top just glow a little brighter? How about we go and get you back in some warmth, my dear? Santa suggested. We are used to this cold in the North Pole, but I can see your lips turning blue from here. Almost reluctantly, you suppose he's right, and agree to go back inside. You still can't believe what's happening, and don't want to say goodbye to the reindeer just yet. But with a kind and comforting arm, Santa guides you back indoors, shutting the door behind him with a clunk. How about we get this fire going again? It's rather chilly in here, don't you think? But before you could even register the question, the fire was roaring healthily, with a number of good Yule logs taking centre stage. How on earth did he do that? He raised flames from the embers as if by magic. With a look of dumbfound on your face, Santa just winks a kind-hearted wink and says, "Some things are best kept a secret." Climbing back into your bed, feeling the residual heat from your covers reacquaint itself with your body, you suddenly feel very tired all over again. At the same time, however, you're reeling with excitement. How can you possibly go to sleep now? Santa perches again by the fire, rubbing his enormous, chilly hands together, gathering a bit of heat himself. How about this? Just before I go and get on with my deliveries, I read you one of your favourite stories. It might help you get back to sleep. With this suggestion, he simultaneously reaches a hand into the inner pocket of his big red coat and pulls out a small blue book. Squinting through the gloom, you catch a glimpse of the cover. It reads, "Warm Bothy on a Winter's Night" by Snooze with Sam. Again, you can't conceal your smile. How did he know? It's one of your favourite bedtime stories, especially around Christmas time. Lying back in your bed, you get a little comfier and cozier, tucking the big quilts around your body, sealing in the heat. Between the crackling, spitting fireplace and the wee Christmas tree in the corner, Santa Claus perched on his stool, fiery flames lighting up one side of his face. Soft, festive tea-light glow and bauble shimmer lighting up the other. Opened the book on the first page. If you are comfortable, my dear, I shall begin. After a long day hiking in the Highland wilderness, you have arrived at your overnight stay. Somewhere north of Ellen Donnan Castle, near the Isle of Skye. A little stone bothy looms out of the gloom towards you, amidst the towering glens on either side. Mere black shadows against the inky, crystal clear twilight sky. Moving closer over the frosty blades of grass towards your shelter, you take note of a warm orange glow escaping through the windows, dissipating into the evening air. You had hoped those staying ahead of you would have kept a fire alive for your arrival. Could it be? As you crunch towards the bothy, placing a hand on the heavy timber door, you ease it open with a creak, cautiously stepping through the threshold, and, to your joy, through an invisible wall of heat. There, slightly to your left, toward the far wall of the single room building, is a fire. Healthy, fully fueled, radiating warmth in all directions. Your cheeks turn rosy, your fingers tingle from the change in temperature. It must be 25 degrees inside. A stark change from the sub-zero bitterness of the glen. With the change in heat comes a sudden, fierce wave of tiredness. You need to rest. You want to sleep. You've been on your feet all day, fighting off the cold with your heavy down jacket. But the chill has still found its way through the small gaps and to your toes especially. All you want now is to get into your bed, all cozy by the roaring fire. You undress and unpack your sleeping bag and bedsheet, stretching the latter over the deep, soft, squishy mattress lying merely 2 meters from the fire. It looks so inviting, already having soaked up the radiating heat from the fireplace. Sliding into your sleeping bag, you are met with an initial sharp chill, which almost instantly resides as your body heat replaces the cooler air. Tides of relaxation wash over you as your own heat bounces back towards you, wrapping around like a thermal blanket. Embracing this desperately needed warmth, your eyes become heavy, barely able to keep themselves open. Noting the flickering flames and the wee crackles and hisses of the healthy fire, you descend into a world of darkness as your eyes fall shut. What's that sound? A distant tawny owl hooting a little night chorus into the darkness, without destination. Maybe it's celebrating having found its dinner for the evening, able to take it back to the nest. Or maybe the owl is calling out for a mate, trying to find another owl to cozy down with for the evening. Who knows? The call is far away, the owl likely perched motionless in a quietly icing tree, its enormous eyes peering curiously out into the gloomy night. A predator so efficient, yet effortlessly elegant. You wonder how old the owl is. Is it a young juvenile? In the early years of its wise old life? Or maybe it is, in fact, a wise old owl. One of experience and expertise, keeping the legend alive. The old owl would have seen the daily comings and goings of many an adventurer like yourself. The wandering herds of red deer, comprising of dozens of does and the mightiest, majestic stags. Their vast antlers towering towards the sky, seeming to defy what's possible for an animal to grow. Yet they move as if they are not even there. The intricate, purposeful structures, weightless on their heads. Other than the occasional rut and bark from interested males, they move silently beneath the equally silent flying owl, gliding above, moving across the land like a mobile landmark. During the daytime, they climb higher up the glen, grazing and feeding on the tender, untouched grasses and shoots. When darkness looms, they leave the higher altitudes to return to the basin of the glen, where it is not only warmer, but more sheltered, and where they can drink. Running through the midline of the glen, weaving and wandering around like a disorientated worm, is a river. Because of the winter temperatures, the edges are freezing, like they're trying to reach across to the other side. At some points, there is only a metre gap or so between the frozen sheets stretching out from each bank. The river itself flows slowly, without drama, barely a sound. The foot of the glen so flat it provides nearly no gradient at all. Foot by foot, metre by metre, mile by mile, the icy water crawls through the vibrant, frost-bitten landscape. The silence is almost deafening. Where is the water going? How long will it take to reach the sea? A day? Perhaps a week? Or even as long as a month? Alone autumnal oak leaf floats delicately down the river, carried by the relentless, leisurely current. It never seems to leave the middle, constantly guided and redirected by eddies and slight increases in flow. Beyond the leaf, the small Bothy sits, slightly elevated above water level. Inside, a fire burns, spitting and crackling. A warm orange glow escaping through the windows, dissipating into the evening air. A cozy home for the night. The last thing you remember that Christmas Eve was Santa placing the book down and silently leave. Through the front door and out to his deer, with footsteps so soft he could have simply disappeared. Boarding his sleigh and tugging the reins, the reindeer take off, free from constraints. Though maybe just a dream, you cannot know yet. It was a Christmas Eve miracle that you will never forget. The following morning, you wake up, dazed and a little confused. What a strange night. You had such vivid dreams. Shaking your head and clearing your mind, you begin to rise up from your bed. But then you notice a small note on the coffee table. Written in the most beautiful handwriting, it simply says, "Thank you for believing in me. With love, Santa Claus." And at the very bottom, P.S. Something a little boozy and sherry-like beneath the tree. Maybe a good idea for the folks. They always pinch my sherry.